Welcome in and hello there. Don't usually do that in that order, but glad you are tuning in, whether it's on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or you're listening on the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which you can find anywhere fine digital streaming apps are given away because they are free. Free to download, free to use, and sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all, a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program. I have two guests. Brian Boyle of NHL Network coming up at 4 to discuss the NHL season that will end tonight. And then the NHL's second season, which is set to commence on Saturday. Switchbacks head coach Alan McCann will drop by at 5:20 to discuss more about his team's big win over Sporting Kansas City and look forward to their weekend match against Monterey Bay. The rest of the time, it's you and me at 719-247-1313. Producer Ray standing by, eagerly awaiting your correspondence. Now, when you, and this is why part of the reason why I don't like the play-in, when you have so long to wait for a playoff series to begin, a lot of thoughts run through your head. Some are good, some not so much. If you'll allow me, as we're still 2 days away from the Nuggets taking on the Wolves, allow me to ruminate on the latter. If the Nuggets end up losing this series to Minnesota, I think the question you will be asking, because I know I certainly will be, what was this all for? And what I mean by that, this team has changed a lot since the last time the Wolves and the Nuggets met in a playoff series. It's changed a lot. What was all this for, if not to move the needle towards winning another championship? Now, if they lose to OKC, if they lose to San Antonio to a lesser extent, maybe you can, as disappointed as you might be, can kind of live with that and say, well, the Nuggets, the moves they made, they just weren't good enough. But what if this team, but that's later, right? This is the first round. If they get bounced in the first round, even against a team like Minnesota with the history they have, that's taking a step back. The only true unacceptable outcome, like the one that you just cannot entertain, with San Antonio or OKC or losing in the finals, you may be able to talk yourself into that the season wasn't a failure. How could it be considered anything else but a failure if they get bounced in the first round? And I think the questions you're going to be asking when I talk about all the changes that this organization has made, I think it will center around one spot on this team, or one of those moves in particular, Michael Malone. You, being the Denver Nuggets, thought that the environment was so toxic that you didn't even entertain the thought that maybe if I remove one of these combatants, that things will get better. Josh Kroenke said it had to be both. And in Calvin Booth, in that equation, Calvin Booth is the one that's, I think, more difficult to defend, right? His track record was not enough. He did not make it look easy, as he has recently stated. He hasn't done enough to keep him if just one of the two had to go. And I think the two-headed front office now of Ben Tenzer and John Wallace did the right thing this offseason. There have been a couple of recent off seasons where if you're a Nuggets fan, you feel like your team is only losing players. They added this offseason. I didn't hear a lot of people pushing back against the moves that the Denver Nuggets made. So I think the guy that would be on the hook if they don't win this series is David Adelman. I think that's where you're going to look immediately. It feels like he has all the pieces. And again, we won't get too far ahead of ourselves here. He has all the pieces to get past the first round. He has all the pieces to beat Minnesota. You can't convince me that he doesn't. He has the best player in the world and the best player in this series. He has an all-star and soon-to-be an all-NBA player in Jamal Murray. He has depth. He has home court going against a Wolves team that isn't what they were 2 years ago. You could argue that they have either stayed the same or gotten worse, and the Nuggets have gotten better. And I know there's always the caveat of health. But does David Adelman not have a part to play in all of this? We've talked a lot in recent days about his decisions to sit guys in the last 2 games of the season. But I said, whoa, zoom out a little bit. Go back. Rewind. What about all the second nights of back-to-backs that Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray played? What about the back-to-back that Aaron Gordon played where he ended up getting hurt? We certainly called into question, Michael Malone in the way he handled, load management, or in his case, lack thereof. Why wouldn't we do the same thing with David Adelman? How could that not at some level be placed on him? And then the rotations, right? How he employs these players. Is Jonas Valanciunas really not going to be a part of the playoff rotation? Is Spencer Jones really going to be a part of it? You're going to ride with Spencer Jones. You're not going to ride with Jonas Valanciunas. And I kind of think that's where we're going, but we'll find out Saturday and beyond how he utilizes his depth pieces. But that's going to be under scrutiny as well if this thing goes haywire. I think if the Nuggets move beyond this round, even though I have been on the record multiple times saying I think that the Nuggets will beat the San Antonio Spurs, I think if they advance, we can have a broader conversation in terms of who's at fault. Right? Because it's going to take more. It's not just on, as much as maybe the New York Knicks would have you believe, it's not just on the coach if you don't have enough to get through and get to the NBA Finals. I think we could ask ourselves, Christian Brown, was he worth the money? Is his role with this team that is greater than what it was when the Nuggets won a title, is that the right role for him? That's not necessarily on David Adelman. He didn't sign him to that contract. Was Cam Johnson truly the right fit? Were these depth pieces that have shown things during the regular season, are they just not the type of depth players that you need in the postseason? Right. I think you could start to look in different places the further the Nuggets advance in these playoffs. But right now, the way I'm looking at Minnesota, this is David Adelman. You got to get this done. And if you don't, I'm going to look right in your direction before anybody else. It's not a given that they'll win. This is not a walkover. And I want to continue to stress that because some of my comments over recent days have been construed as I'm giving no respect to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I respect the Wolves. They're a good team. And I'm not even setting a bar like the Nuggets have to finish this team off in 5 games. I'm just saying advance. Just advance. The sooner you could do it, the better, but just advance. 4, 5, 6, 7 games. Just get past Minnesota. Be done with this moment in time with Minnesota where this is a rivalry. But because it's a rivalry, it's not going to be easy. Every single game of these series you expect, we always get one stinker. I will say at some point, we're going to get a lopsided game one way or another. But you go into this series looking at it and saying, yeah, I expect most of these games to be highly contentious. And some of the decisions by David Adelman can ultimately make the difference here. And this, David Adelman got a little bit of a free ride last year, if we're being honest about it, right? Because it felt like he was thrust into duty here by Josh Kroenke. Like the decision to fire Calvin Booth and Michael Malone, and if the Nuggets were to have failed in the postseason, Josh Kroenke would have been the one you were looking at, because he's the one that made, in some people's minds, the rash decision to clean house with just a few games left in the regular season. So David Adelman, free ride, house money, however you want to put it. I think he had a little bit of that last year. That's gone now. Like, he's been on the job for a whole season. And he had that head start, if you will, of being the Nuggets head coach by coaching them in the postseason. So there's none of that he has to, that any apologist would look at and say, well, David Adelman's new. No. Last year, sure, because it was an extraordinary circumstance, a phrase that will come up multiple times during this show. But he got the job this offseason because of the job he did in the playoffs, but also understanding where the Nuggets are at right now. This wasn't a move to take a step back and take a breath and kind of reconfigure things. The idea was you hire David Adelman and you just build off of what you did last year. So losing in the first round would not satisfy that criteria. And the question would be asked by me, even though I was on board with David Adelman. I was on board with the hire. But, things change. New evidence is presented. If the Nuggets get bounced in the first round, I have a hard time seeing the scenario in which we're not having a conversation about whether David Adelman should be one full season and done as Nuggets head coach. And it's not like you could, given how he got the job, you can't say, well, that's a rash decision. The guy took over with how many games left in the regular season last year? By comparison, one and done is not a rash decision at all. And it's not like the pool of candidates is that much different than it was last year. I mean, every time, and I like him a lot. I think he's a terrific broadcaster. He's a very good coach. Every time I listen to Stan Van Gundy, I feel like he's still campaigning for the job. He's voting Jokic for MVP, goes on about how he's the best player in the world. Stan Van Gundy, very pro Nuggets. And I wonder if he's looking at David Adelman and being like, I don't know if you're long for the job, so just in case, I'm going to make sure. Now, it's not that he's making any of this stuff up. It's what he believes. It's just how effusive with his praise he is of Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. I think he would take the Nuggets head coaching job in a heartbeat. His brother just got bounced from the play-in. Here's another David Adelman thing. The weakness of the Denver Nuggets is their defense. David Adelman's not a defensive guy. If the Nuggets bow out because they can't stop anybody, Do you ask the question of maybe they need a more defensive-minded head coach? You thought that David Adelman with Jared Dudley as essentially his defensive coordinator would be enough. If it's not enough against the Wolves, then it's not enough. And we just saw this happen in the NFL. Patriots thought they had their guy in-house, Gerard Mayo, boom, taking over for Bill Belichick. Easy, right? It was a disaster. Robert Kraft cuts his losses. In comes Mike Vrabel. And the entire story after that. There's I don't know if you've seen the news. There's a bit of a development in that, but before that, on the field, worked out pretty well for him. So there's recent precedent that this could work. And I'm not saying that this season, I just said the other day, this is a successful regular season for the Denver Nuggets. Again, this is ruminating. This is exploring all the different possibilities and what it may lead to here. I think David Adelman overall did a very good job in year one. And I do not expect them to lose to Minnesota. But if they do, questions have to be asked. Because this is unequivocally the most unacceptable result of these playoffs is for the Nuggets, even against the Wolves, to get bounced in the first round. Ruminate with me. 719-247-1313. What are we going to be saying if the Nuggets lose to the Minnesota Timberwolves? Coming up next, we'll stick with hoops because Luka and Kate Cunningham got some good news today. What does that mean for the MVP case of Nikola Jokic and the All-NBA case of Jamal Murray? Saturday, Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC is back in action, taking on Monterey Bay FC. 3:00 kick. If you would like to be there with 3 people that you would like to see a soccer match with, be the 13th texter to text Switchbacks and your name to 719-247-1313. That's Switchbacks and your name to 719-247-1313. The 13th texter to do that will get a 4-pack of tickets to the Switchbacks match on Saturday. If you do not win, or if 4 just isn't enough for you, switchbacksfc.com. So the NBA has ruled in favor of Luka Doncic and Cade Cunningham when it comes to this extraordinary circumstance exception when it comes to the 65-game rule. They did rule against Anthony Edwards, who also applied. Edwards' business manager released this via ESPN. Anthony and I appreciate the PA appealing his case, that being the Players Association. For me personally, I'm a bit confused at the clemency for Cade, who missed time for something that happened on the court, and not Ant, who missed time for an infection. But ultimately, you already know Ant isn't tripping over it at all. He was mad he didn't get to 65, but not because he missed out on awards. He was mad because it meant he didn't get to play in all 82, which is what he always tries to do for his teammates and fans. You know, the only thing he wants is a ring. That is what we call in the business taking advantage of a situation, spinning it. Clearly, they wanted Anthony Edwards to be eligible for postseason awards, but now you could set your client up as the guy that didn't care. Cade Cunningham and Luka, they care. Look at them. Look at how much they care. Ant doesn't care. He just wants a ring. So good on him, Justin Holland, Anthony Edwards' business manager, because that's what good business managers do. And the infection part for Anthony Edwards, it gave me pause a little bit, because with Cade Cunningham, it wasn't because it happened on the court that swayed me one way or another, or whether he should be eligible for postseason awards. It was the extraordinary nature of his injury. I mean, he popped a lung. That's not normal. And the guy has shown throughout the season, and even as soon as he could come back, he did. Cade Cunningham has shown that had it not been for this extraordinary injury, he would have easily gotten to 65 games. With Anthony Edwards, and Ray, if you would do me a favor, look up how many games Anthony Edwards played this year. Because an infection kind of feels like maybe it would fit under the umbrella of extraordinary. How many?
61.
Okay. I think maybe I need to have a bigger tent here, because maybe Anthony Edwards has a case. An infection feels a little extraordinary. Doesn't feel like something he picked up in a basketball game. But I suppose the NBA said, well, it was an extension, and that's kind of a weird word to use, but an extension of an injury he had. I think maybe Anthony Edwards has a case here. But I would say still not as good of a case as Cade Cunningham has. And I've been on board with Luka getting those 2 games back for the birth of his child. And I've seen arguments like he missed a game because he picked up a 16th technical. And if that were the reason why Luka missed, right? If he didn't have a kid, He had his injuries, which everybody is allowed to be injured to some degree. But if it was the reason why he missed was truly that suspension for technicals, then I could see it. But he has, and that, you know, this, if you're a parent, kids are a great excuse. They get you out of things. Luka being at the birth of his child is allowing him to get all NBA, to be in the running for MVP. And he did it being a good father. So I understand bringing up the 16 technicals, and maybe that would have pushed him across the finish line as well. But the 2 games that he missed for the birth of his child put him past the 65-game threshold. I'm okay with it. And I'm okay with the idea that this is not a hard line that the NBA has taken. I'm all right with this. I think that's what a lot of people are pushing back against. Well, what's the point of having a rule if you grant exceptions? There are exceptions to rules. The idea is you put in this premise to combat load management. Okay? But you don't want guys to be denied their opportunities for a lot more money, all NBA, MVP, all of that kind of stuff, for things that you're not trying to combat with the rule. You're not. Adam Silver didn't put in the 65-game rule so guys would start missing the birth of their children. Right? It's these soft tissue things that teams manipulate and use as an excuse to load manage guys. And I think that the NBA, being the multi-billion-dollar business that it is, has enough smart people that can look through each individual case that comes to them and decide this is what we're trying to combat against. No, you don't get your extraordinary circumstance, but this, the birth of your child or popping a lung, you know what? That's not the spirit of the rule. The spirit of the rule is to combat load management. And I think it's perfectly fine that the NBA has this apparatus in place that you can appeal. You can appeal suspensions. You should be able to appeal absences that have led you to fall below the 65-game threshold. You can push back on that, 719-247-1313 if you want. But obviously this has a direct impact on both Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, because I think Jokic moves down in the MVP voting. And you know how I am, okay? Nobody talks about how many times Kamala Harris finished runner-up in the presidential election. I really do not care. Maybe they do, and that's fine. But I don't care whether Nikola Jokic finishes second, third, fourth, or fifth. I don't. He should be on the ballot because this ranked choice balloting exists, and you can't put 5 guys above Nikola Jokic, so I'd have a little bit of a problem with that. But my main thing is he winning or is he not? He's not going to win the MVP. We already know this. So Luka's inclusion, to me, doesn't make a difference. But for the people that do care about how deep the ballot goes, Luka's going to have a negative impact on Nikola Jokic. I have a negative impact on everybody because he's taking votes. But I don't think this ultimately changes who wins the MVP. I don't. And we'll see how close the vote is. The indications that I have shared with you is that Shai's going to win this thing quite easily. If the actual vote turns out to not be that way, then, we'll have to have a different discussion. But it doesn't bother me that much whether Jokic finishes second, third, or fourth. I know he's finished 1 or 2 in the MVP balloting, and that's a cool thing to say. But ultimately, when he is retired, we're going to talk about the number of MVPs he won, not the number of times he finished in the top whatever. And as far as Jamal Murray goes, I don't think this will end up impacting him in a huge way. And again, I'll use my own filter for this. I think the difference between first, second, and third team, if you're a first team All-NBA player, I think that carries a little bit more weight. We talk about guys being a first team All-Pro. I don't know that we differentiate between a guy who's on the second team and the third team. Again, Jamal Murray may care, but in terms of the way we discuss him, in terms of the way we look back on Jamal Murray's season or his career, to me, if he wasn't going to be a first teamer, which I don't think he was going to be, I don't know that there's a huge difference between second and third team, but this very well could push him down to the third team. I don't think it should, but it very well might. But the difference to me isn't a massive one. So I think for the first time all year, I'm good with what the NBA did. I'm good all around. I got to look a little bit more at the Anthony Edwards thing. He has not been really talked about. So what that infection was and everything, who knows? Maybe he has a claim here. But as far as letting Cade Cunningham skate on the 65 games, Luka, and the impact it has on the MVP voting, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, I'm kind of good all around. I still think that Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are in line for the accolades they were already in line for, which is Jokic first team All-NBA, Jamal Murray second, should be, maybe he'll be the top guy on the third team. Your thoughts at 719-247-1313. We'll just make it a clean sweep this hour because coming up next, the performance by one of the best players in NBA history last night got me thinking, what if we completely changed the format of the NBA playoffs? Would it change who you think would ultimately end up winning a title? I'll discuss more in depth next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Join us Monday, May 4th at Cheyenne Mountain Zoo for the Small Business Bash and Awards celebration. There will be awards, obviously, networking, festivities, and live music kicking off Small Business Week, which will include workshops, panels, and networking events. It's all hosted by Pikes Peak SBDC, Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC, and the Better Business Bureau of Southern Colorado. Register now at kvor.com. It is one of the great joys of being a sports fan when a player that is nearing the end of his or her career summons what made them great, maybe for one last time. And that's exactly what we got from Steph Curry last night.
Curry, three, good!
Steph Curry, clutch as he can be, as the Golden State Warriors live to fight another day as they knock off the LA Clippers. And it's not just Steph, although he was the biggest story. How about the way that Draymond locked down Kawhi Leonard in that game? Like, you got a glimpse of what that dynasty used to be. It's in ruins. There's no two ways about it. It's a dying civilization, the Golden State Warriors dynasty, but the remnants are still there. And as a basketball fan, unless you were rooting for the LA Clippers, and I have yet to meet a human being that does that, it was fun. And it even got crotchety Steve Kerr, who seems to complain about everything. It got him to have a smile on his face after the game.
For one night, we're us. We're champions again, and I know that may sound crazy to everybody out there. It's a play-in game. I don't care.
And look, that sounds incredibly corny. You're like, really, Steve Kerr, you want a play-in game, and you're not even guaranteed to go to the playoffs yet. You got to win again tomorrow. But understand it from his perspective, because he's been a part of the inevitable decline of the Warrior dynasty. Not because he's not good at what he does, but it's just this league is now eating alive champions, let alone dynasties. And his core players are aging, and they're not on the court as much, and they're not at the height of their powers anymore. It has not been a fun go of it for the last few years in Golden State. Right? And when you have experienced what Steve Kerr and Steph Curry and Draymond Green have accomplished, and now you go through these years, I mean, it's even worse than any other franchise going through a run of mediocrity. Like, it's just so far below their standards, but there's just nothing they can do about it. I mean, these things kind of happen in sports. If you are as loyal as the Warriors have been. I mean, they could have spun off some of these other pieces and but they chose not to. And so they're just kind of riding this thing to the bottom, and then they'll start again, and who knows who will be leading that team. So I understand it was a fun night. This is not about Golden State now being a threat to anybody, most notably the Oklahoma City Thunder. But this is just for one night. It felt like the Warriors used to be. It felt like old Steph Curry. It felt like old Draymond Green. And you get those every once in a while near the end. We just saw it with LeBron. Right? The last week of the season with Luka and Austin Reeves out, the guy looked like this was 10 years ago. So I understand it. It's corny. I get it, but I'm okay with it. Because it's been, by Warrior standards, it's been hell on earth for the last 2 or 3 years. And it got me thinking last night, not that I am a proponent of the play-in, But that old question of if you had one game to win, who would you go with, right? We ask that question a lot. So as we are impatiently waiting for the real playoffs to begin, let's dabble in this for a moment. If now all of a sudden it wasn't 7-game series that we're talking about, one game, which, by the way, not preferred. I am an advocate. I understand why you can't do it for the NFL. That is a bad idea, but for hockey, for baseball, for basketball, I am a big proponent of series. Right? 7-gamer ideally, but I can live with a 5-game, and I don't like the 3-game stuff that Major League Baseball does. But I like series because I think it gives you a better chance to determine who the best team is. And I'm not even so sure that the best team won last night. Right? I mean, not that the Clippers or the Warriors are anything of note this year, but I kind of think that the Clippers are better than Golden State. But they weren't in that game. So if the NBA decided we're just going to completely flip it, it's March Madness style, you played out this bracket, would it change who you have winning it all? I think it would for me. And I think there would be some series that I would change along the way. You know, I was talking with Ray about this the other day. Like, I feel like the Eastern Conference is so wide open, and the idea of it being wide open should be conducive to upsets, right? Because there's just not the separation between these teams. But now I'm because I feel that way. I felt that way about the AFC this year in the NFL, and it turned out it was pretty chalk. So now I'm kind of starting to think that maybe the East is going to be chalk, that it's going to be Detroit and Boston and New York and Cleveland winning all their first-round series, even though I think a couple of those teams are very vulnerable, Knicks and Cavs specifically. So, but in a one-game scenario, I think you would get things to be a little topsy-turvy at times. And I think just kind of going through it, and the easy one is who you got tomorrow night, Phoenix or Golden State. I'm gonna ride this wave. I'm gonna say that Golden State wins again, and then they get absolutely run out of the gym for 4 games against Oklahoma City. But Phoenix, Golden State, I mean, we just saw it last night. I think Golden State will win. I just don't think that Curry is built for the long haul here. It's kind of the same with LeBron, right? I think one game at Staples, even without Luka, I think LeBron could beat Houston. In fact, I think LA wins game 1 over Houston. So already there are a couple different ones that I would have. And one that would be probably the most significant change from what I think this playoff is going to be. For one game, all the players who are available right now are available. I think I might take the Denver Nuggets to beat OKC in one game. I think why I'm taking OKC, I would take OKC if they were to meet Denver in the Western Conference Finals, is I just think that the way OKC is built is conducive to 7-game series success. I mean, all of these teams have one player where you're like, that guy could go off, right? Anthony Edwards could go off in one game against the Denver Nuggets. Steph Curry, we saw it last night, albeit in a play-in. LeBron James can turn back the clock for one night. Every one of these teams has a guy that you look at and go, well, if he goes off, then I think this team wins. So they have that with Shea, certainly. But the defensive side of the court is what I keep harping on with OKC. Their ability to wear you down because, one, they're very good defenders, and two, they get away with a lot of physicality that they shouldn't, by the way, but we'll pick that conversation up a little bit later if we get to that point. But I think the Thunder are built to win 7-game series. Shea, the depth, the way they play defensively, that I think they're built for a 7-game series. One game, one night, Nuggets would have the best player. And they'd have one of the best playoff performers that we have seen in recent years with Jamal Murray. I think in a one-game scenario, I think I might take the Nuggets over OKC. And by the way, if the Nuggets somehow did not make it there, I think I would take OKC over San Antonio. Even though San Antonio, their entire identity this year has been in one-off situations beating OKC. But again, the stakes are a little bit higher here. So what I'm looking at is an OKC Boston NBA Finals. You remove the 7-game series part of it, and it's just one-off games like March Madness. I think I might go Nuggets Celtics. I don't know. I think the path to the NBA Finals in the East would be a little bit more fun. I still think I would end up with Boston. I do. But I think you can make a case for New York. And the entire premise of the Knicks is that supposedly now they are built to be able to beat Boston. So maybe for one night they could show that. But I think now 7-game series, I'm OKC Boston. One-off situations in kind of Denver, Boston. Take your thoughts on that. 719-24-7, 1313. Got to grab something. Excuse my reach. Should have grabbed this earlier, but I didn't. But now I have it. Want to tell you about Low T Center. If you're looking for TRT that actually fits your lifestyle, it's time to check out Synergenics and Low T Center. They give you options, right? How does something fit your lifestyle? Well, it's flexible. You got a bunch of different options to choose from so it can fit your lifestyle, like testosterone shots, pills, or enclomiphene, which helps boost testosterone without affecting fertility. So maybe one of those is the best way to go for you. Even where you get your treatment is an option, has options. You could get treatment in clinic or have your testosterone shipped straight to your door. And even if you choose self-pay or insurance, you could go either way on that. And right now, Synergenics is rolling out new treatment options, including PT-141. It's an FDA-approved libido-boosting peptide. They also have new antioxidants, GLP-1 pills, and more. Boost energy, lose weight, and increase your confidence with Synergenics and Low T Center. If you're ready to explore treatments that work with your lifestyle and your budget, maybe even more importantly, book your free T-test now at fixmylowt.com. That's fixmylowt.com. Coming up next, Brian Boyle, NHL Network. What has been the biggest story of this NHL season? And would he take the Avalanche or the field in the Stanley Cup playoffs? Welcome in. I'll dispense with the pleasantries because we want to bring in our guest today, the best playoff in all the land, any sport, is upon us, finally. And tomorrow night, the NHL Network crew will be previewing both the Eastern Conference and Western Conference playoffs. Join me now is Brian Boyle from NHL Network, who will specifically be on the Eastern Conference playoff preview tomorrow night, but he'll be all over NHL Network's playoff coverage as we move forward. Brian, great to have you today. How are you?
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Great. Looking forward to the fun part of the season.
I know, right? Obviously, out here, we've been kind of twiddling our thumbs a little bit and waiting for the postseason to come along since the Avs clinched the President's Trophy in the division and everything else. You've been locked into all the way up until tonight, right? And there's a lot still to be decided. But as you kind of take a moment to look back this season, what do you think that the biggest story or stories in the NHL this season were?
Oh, geez. Well, let's start with seeing our boys playing in the Olympics again, because starting with the four nations last year and then getting to see these guys internationally, I just grew up watching it, rooting for it, seeing it a little bit, not all the time. Obviously, I just thought it was so great for the game, what it's done for the game, what it's done for, fans. I'm from the Boston area, big sports town, obviously, a lot of different sports, but all the buzz is around hockey. And, what we got to see with our guys back over there. And then, like, the show that the women put on was outrageous, too. What a performance from the Americans. And then, obviously, Canada's not going to go down without a fight. But just the state of the game, I think, is in an unbelievable spot. So getting to do what I do now, right? Like, I get to play. That was a dream come true for as long as I got to play. And I can't really do anything else, so getting to work at the NHL Network, you see all these things. And, Matthew Schaefer, what an unbelievable story. And then what a big jump Mac Celebrini took, where it's like, is he a top 5 player in the world next year? Is that what we're going to be talking about? Like, what the Sharks, with the jump that they took from one year to the next, is incredible. Anaheim has a lot of talent. I know that division's been getting, a little bit of criticism, obviously, but the teams that were at the bottom last year that are coming up, I'm not really criticizing them, the Anaheims and the San Jose's, because, they're ground up, right? They knock it down to the studs and they built back up, and that's exciting to see. Just all the young talent too. It's been incredible, but not to be forgotten is, like, Alex Ovechkin had 32 goals this year. People don't know if he's coming back or not. I hope he does. Sidney Crosby, once again, the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh, Brian, did we lose you? I think we lost Brian. So Ray will try to get him back on here. And so many things this year on the in the NHL this season, so many great stories, and it's only going to get better here.
Hello?
And we'll try to get Brian back on the line here. We had to drop him there. It seemed like he got cut off. But, we'll continue on with Brian Boyle here. So tonight there are some stakes with the Colorado Avalanche and who they might play in the first round, as they have. I think we have Brian back on. Brian, do I have you?
Hi, it's Amanda with Brian again.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like you guys lost connection, but everything sounded okay on our end.
Okay, yeah, we just it dropped off, so we'll get Brian on. Brian, if
Hello?
you're there, we'll continue right away here. Hey, Brian, sorry about that connection issue.
I have their switchboard.
Okay, that we need to do that. We'll get Brian back on the amazing thing that is live radio. But as I was saying, the stakes tonight, there are 3 teams playing right now. Any of these 3 teams can play the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. One is the most unlikely. Could you imagine if the Edmonton Oilers fell in the postseason and in the postseason slotting, and it was Avs Oilers to start for the first round of the playoffs? Now, that's the least likely of the scenarios, because what would have to happen is Edmonton would have to lose tonight against Vancouver, and then you would have Anaheim and LA both winning in order for Edmonton to fall to the Colorado Avalanche. So that's a little bit unlikely, but we'll dive into those a little bit more here later. I think we have Brian Boyle from NHL Network back. Brian, do I have you?
I got you.
All right. So sorry about that. I don't know, gremlins in the system or something, but as you look at these playoffs, would you, if I gave you the choice to take the Colorado Avalanche to win the Stanley Cup or the field, well, which would you take?
Oh, I'm sorry. I got to go field on that one. It's just, and look, I love Colorado earned the path that they have, which I think is going to be easier than maybe the second round isn't, but the 2 teams that I think would give them the hardest chance, well, one of them's going to be out after round 1, right? So, Minnesota and Dallas can go ahead and beat each other up, but there's something to be said about that. If they go 6 or 7 games and they're really playing very good hockey, you're used to a certain brand of hockey, and there's rest versus rust. There's all those different things. I think Colorado has an unbelievable chance to get to the Cup final. I think when you're in the Cup final, a lot of things have to go right. There's a lot of luck involved, no matter how good you are. Just judging from history and being there a couple times and faltering. One year I'm in the Cup finals. I thought we got severely outplayed, but we took 3 to overtime, and unfortunately we lost. But then the following season, I was right back there, and we dominated. I thought we controlled the play. We lose to Chicago in 6, and it was devastating. Either way, it doesn't matter how you lose, but it's a very real possibility. So everything has to kind of be clicking perfectly. You need to get luck with some help. I think they have the roster to do it. I worry a little about Manson or Burns, a little bit older, bigger. This is the best of the best right now, especially in the later rounds 2, 3, and 4. If they can manage it well, then I don't know who's beating them, but if they're exposed at all, and say like a Tampa Bay goes through the East and they get healthy and they get everybody back and they're clicking, man, they're kind of an animal to play against as well. There's so many unknowns in the East too. Whoever comes out of that, like, it's Buffalo for real? I don't know. But yes, Colorado has positioned themselves as the best right now. They should be the favorite, but there's just so much unknown with the NHL playoffs. That's why we watch it. That's why we love it.
Absolutely. Brian Boyle, NHL Network, my guest. Let's talk about the side of the bracket that you will be delving deep into tomorrow night on NHL Network, the Eastern Conference. You mentioned Tampa with the pedigree, and you mentioned Buffalo without any pedigree. It's been forever since they've been in the postseason. Just how wide open do you think the Eastern Conference is? I think we lost Brian again. Yep. We'll just unfortunately we'll have to just say goodbye on that. I think it is definitely on our end, as my soundboard here is absolutely freaking out. That is the reason here for that. So we may need to get an engineer in here to fix that. Disappointing, but great stuff from Brian Boyle when we had him. But again, going through the Mac, why don't we just take a break here? I think everybody needs a break. We'll take a break, come back, and figure everything out. You're listening to Drive Time Sports on Extra Sports 1300. Saturday, the Denver Nuggets will be hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves. You may have heard about this. Game 1 of their playoff series. And so the Nuggets just practicing, waiting patiently for this charade that is the NBA play-in tournament gets done so the real playoffs can begin. Here are, I should say, Nikola Jokic's thoughts on this series against the Wolves.
I mean, this is like 7th time that we play against them, and of course, it's something similar to last year. The teams are not similar, and nothing is. Players are better individually and collectively. So the key is probably to set our tone, and we be the aggressors, not them.
Yeah, and I think that's a terrific point that Nikola Jokic makes, right? Especially the way that series went 2 years ago, where, I mean, you remember the Jamal Murray heat pack game and all this kind of stuff. The Nuggets got to dictate the terms here because the Wolves are going to try and do a lot of the same things. They're not. And I do think that there's enough personnel different on both sides that tilts things the Nuggets' way, but it's still the same ideas. It's still Chris Finch. It's still Rudy Gobert and Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniel. A lot of the players that gave the Nuggets problems 2 years ago are still there. So the two teams are different enough that I think it's going to go a different way, but that's as long as the Nuggets do certain things, and I think at the top of the list is what Jokic is saying there. Like, we got to take the fight to them. They took the fight to us. We weren't ready for it, and they never recovered. Not really anyway, right? Or it felt like they recovered for a little while, and then Game 7 happened. So Game 1 Saturday, and this is a very Saturday storyline, right? What you want to see, knowing it's probably going to be longer than a sweep at the very least. Just Game 1, set the tone for the series. Say this is going to be played on our terms. You can't push us around like you used to. The Nuggets have already shown this during the regular season, but now they can show it in the postseason where all these two teams are thinking about over the next 2 weeks is each other. So no chance that you catch a team on the third game in 5 nights or the second night of a back-to-back or any of this stuff. You are 100% locked in to one another. So setting the tone is going to be extremely important. One major change in this series is the way the Wolves will defend Nikola Jokic. There was a blueprint of how to defend Nikola Jokic in the bubble, and it was what the Lakers did. They put Dwight Howard physically on Nikola Jokic, and they allowed Anthony Davis to kind of play free safety, roam around, and come help if necessary. Okay, and then the Wolves in that series, general managed by Tim Connolly, his first order of business when he arrived in Minnesota after witnessing what the Lakers did to Jokic in the bubble, went out and got Rudy Gobert. And then they meet in the playoffs, and you have Karl Anthony Towns on Jokic and Gobert floating. And it worked. It absolutely did. Now, there's no Karl Anthony Towns. Okay, they didn't get back a similar player. They got Julius Randle. They got more depth. They were able to save money against the salary cap. Nuggets certainly know what that's like when you have to make those kind of moves, but it's not the same. And I think that's one of the major differences, and why I say I think this series goes a different way is because I just don't think the Wolves are as formidable on the defensive end against Jokic specifically as they were 2 years ago. To wit, here's Julius Randle on the game plan against Nikola Jokic.
Probably got to call God and talk to him for a little bit and, ask him for a few favors.
So Julius Randle can go ahead and call the man upstairs and see if he can provide any help for this series. But I actually don't even think it's going to be Julius Randle's job. So the Wolves followed one team's blueprint to defend Nikola Jokic 2 years ago. That was the Lakers' blueprint. A new blueprint has emerged. It's the Thunder blueprint. What did the Thunder do? They put a guard or a smaller player, not Gobert, not one of their taller players. They put a smaller player on Nikola Jokic and let the bigger player, Rudy Gobert, come over and help. So that Gobert aspect is still there. But now you have a much smaller body that Nikola Jokic is going up against in the post, as was Karl Anthony Towns. And you know what the Thunder do? The Thunder, to their credit, I suppose, have found this neat little loophole in the officiating of the NBA that if you put a smaller guy on Nikola Jokic, you can get away with mauling him. Because the official apparently looks at Nikola Jokic and says, well, this is unfair. The guy's going to score 100 if I allow this to continue. The smaller player is going to have to be able to try and get some sort of a foothold here. But I don't think that should be the case. If you want to put a smaller player on Nikola Jokic, then that's your prerogative. But that player should not be allowed to get away with blatant fouling of Nikola Jokic. So that's what Minnesota is going to try and do. They were not overly successful in that endeavor this season. Nikola Jokic put up monster numbers against them during the regular season, and I do not expect for it to work. And I also don't think that the Minnesota Timberwolves can quite follow the Thunder blueprint. I don't think they're going to be allowed to get away with what the Thunder do. I just don't. So I think Nikola Jokic is going to be able to do his thing. And then you go out on the perimeter, and the Timberwolves rather are not guarding a hampered Jamal Murray. He's healthy for this series, or at least healthier than he was 2 years ago. And that's where it all starts in these playoffs. I know we talk about depth, and depth is important. Depth is hot right now. Everybody wants some depth. But it starts with your star duo. Shea and Chet, or Shea and Jalen Williams, if you prefer. KD and Şengün, Wemby and Steph Castle. You go on down the list, both on the East and the Western Conference side. These teams aren't going anywhere if they don't get the best out of their two stars. And most of these teams have star duos. And then on top of it, it's almost like your two stars are the price of admission. Like, you got to have that, or it's not going to happen for you. And then, okay, what separates these teams when the matchup of the two stars on each side is a little bit more even? That's where the depth comes in. So it starts with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. If they're right, if they're terrorizing the Minnesota Timberwolves, then it's going to go a long way to the Nuggets winning this series and maybe ending this series in fairly short order, not needing a full 7, maybe not even needing 6 to beat Minnesota. It's the same jerseys, same coach, same star player in Anthony Edwards. I get it, but there's just enough difference between the Wolves of 2 years ago and now, and the Nuggets of 2 years ago to now, that I think that the result will be different. But as Christian Brown stated, it's going to be fun.
I mean, it's a team you see a lot, a team that we've had a good series with, or a couple of good series with, and obviously they got us last in a tough game. So we got to get them back, and it's a fun series. Playing against them is always fun. Obviously the talent on both sides is so high. So I'm excited. Like I said, I hope everybody's healthy, and it's going to be a good series.
You know, speaking of him, Tim Hardaway Jr. said something interesting today. His message to Cam Johnson was to be Brooklyn Cam Johnson. And Ray pointed that quote out to me, and I found it fascinating because Brooklyn Cam Johnson cannot exist in the role that the Denver Nuggets have Cam Johnson in. Right? You don't have a lot of freedom. You aren't depended on as much, not as much as required, you know, in terms of shouldering the scoring load and all of that kind of stuff. So when Bruce Brown, I mean, I get at its core, it's just, hey, be the player that you've been. Right? You're a talented player. We brought you in for a reason. Be that guy. Right? It's been an up and down season for him. I think that's really where it starts. That's the core of it. But it got me thinking, you know, there's nothing keeping the Nuggets and you and I from kind of altering our perspective on this whole puzzle. Okay, Murray, Jokic, Gordon, those roles are cemented. They are what they are now and will forever be. Right? It starts with those 3 guys. And we've talked about Cam Johnson in the Michael Porter role, quote unquote. What's to say Christian Brown can't be in the Michael Porter role? I mean, let's open our minds up a little bit here. And I still don't think if you do that, you're getting to Brooklyn Cam Johnson. But can you get to Phoenix Cam Johnson? I mean, the shift in priority, right? Cam Johnson has been looked at as the 5th option. Right? And a lot of times. Like, you got to let Christian Brown do his thing. You got to let him cut to the basket. You got to get him his shots, right? He's their $20 million man. Well, so is Cam Johnson. Could it be possible that we've been kind of looking at this a little bit wrong here in saying, and I think the initial idea was certainly to bring in Cam Johnson as a replacement for Michael Porter. Right? That was the swap they're making. But as new information comes in, smart people allow for their minds to be changed. So would it behoove the Denver Nuggets to put more of more trust, if you want to call it that? I'm more of the load on Cam Johnson and make Christian Brown kind of the bystander, put him in the box a little bit. We know it hasn't been a great season for Christian Brown. Maybe he needs to stand over in the corner and the Nuggets will find him if they need him. Like, maybe Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, as they're running that 2-man game, maybe they should look Cam Johnson's way first. And as I was thinking about it, and as I'm saying it now, I think that it would be prudent to do that. I think Cam Johnson is a more dynamic scorer, a more dynamic basketball player than Christian Brown is, more talented than he is. And I know Michael Porter was that way, but there was just, it worked. The roles that they all had worked. Maybe a little, and I think Cam Johnson has played very well down the stretch of this season. But aren't you kind of left with, if you had a choice, give me some more of Cam Johnson, a little bit less of Christian Brown? It's kind of how I feel. I mean, they're going to need them all to win a title, right? This isn't saying, Christian Brown, take a hike. The Nuggets still need him, but maybe, readjusting the pecking order a little bit. I don't think it would be a bad idea for the Denver Nuggets. Game 1 Saturday against the Wolves, 1:30 on 740 KVOR. Coming up next, Jared Bednar off the IL. He is back with the Colorado Avalanche, and you'll get his thoughts on tonight, final game of the regular season, and more importantly, what's he been doing with himself as he's trying to heal that eye of his. You're listening to 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. A few scheduling items that may be of interest to you. First of all, we have a date and a time for the Switchbacks U.S. Open Cup match against the Colorado Rapids. It will be April 29th, so 2 weeks from yesterday. Dick's Sporting Goods Park in Commerce City. It's a 7 o'clock kickoff. Switchbacks have all the info you need in terms of being there at switchbacksfc.com. And I will let you know that we will be carrying the game here on Extra Sports 1300 on April 29th at 7 p.m. So it'd be really cool to see as many Switchbacks fans up at Dick's Sporting Goods Park as we can get. But if you can't go to the game, all right, I don't even know why I say that. We have an app. You can listen at the game. Just download the app, and you can listen to Roland and I call the match while you're watching the match. But it will be April 29th, 7 p.m., Dick's Sporting Goods Park, and on Extra Sports 1300. So that's one thing. Second, as much as I love Commerce City, the Nuggets have a little bit better of a road trip coming up next season, as it has been announced that they will play the Pacers in Mexico City next year. That game will be on November 7th, which reminds me that I put in for November 7th off from here for just in case something came up, and now something has come up. So now I know what I'm doing on November 7th. I'm going to Mexico City to check out the Nuggets and the Pacers. And I don't know if I will come back, but going down there, probably not. So November 7th would be a fun trip. Like, I'm not an international games guy. You know that. But this is North America. This is Mexico. This is not going over to Berlin. Mexico City, I believe, is where they... Mexico City's, I think, an hour behind us. So you go to Canada or you go to Mexico, that's fine. That's different. I have no issue with that. It's when the NFL goes to Berlin or any league. I know Avalanche, I think, play games in like Sweden. And I get why they do it. I'm just not going to sit here and say that I like it. Mexico, if you're going down to Mexico City, great. No problem with that. That would be an international series game that I would be interested in going to. So that's November 7th. And then you have, in the more immediate future, information regarding when the Colorado Avalanche will begin their postseason run. And are you ready for it? It's Sunday at TBA against TBD. The only information that we were able to pry out of the NHL today is that the Colorado Avalanche would play on Sunday. At some point between midnight and midnight, the Avs are going to drop the puck on their postseason. We don't know anything more than that, but we will know more tonight. Because once again, once this, and I got to say, it's really interesting. I saw Jason Demers, a former NHL player, he works for an NHL Network now, tweeted out, like, you are going to see Edmonton and LA and Anaheim play as hard as you have ever seen them, because the loser of their games tonight, and that none of them play each other, if the team that loses their game tonight might end up doing what Darryl Suter once said playing the Avalanche would be, a waste of 8 days. Now, for Edmonton, I don't think it would be as bad. I mean, it would be bad for Edmonton because you don't want to play the Avs. But I would expect that series to last a little bit longer. Anaheim and LA, it's going to be what Darryl Suter said. But Edmonton has, let me get these opponents right. And this is also the fun part of this. They're all playing bad teams. So you got Edmonton that is hosting Vancouver. As long as you don't wear Nordiques uniforms, I think you're okay. And there's no chance Edmonton would do that. Anaheim is at Nashville. A little tricky, maybe. And the Kings are hosting the Calgary Flames. If Dustin Wolf is hot like he was the other night against the Avs, that might be tricky for the Kings. I would expect Edmonton, and they kind of have the hammer here because Edmonton would have to lose in regulation and the other two teams would have to win for Edmonton to fall all the way down to the second wildcard spot. So I think there's not a high percentage chance that it's Connor McDavid against Nathan McKinnon in round one. It's going to be Anaheim or LA. I don't know. I kind of feel like the most vulnerable team could be Anaheim to fall. But I think if Anaheim gets even to overtime, they would hold off LA. So I think that's the way it goes. Edmonton would have to lose in regulation. The other two teams would have to win. I think Anaheim would have to lose in regulation and the Kings win. So it feels very much like it's going to be LA. But I think if there's a team tonight that might be sweating it out a little bit more, it might be Anaheim. Although Nashville has not been a great team this year. But if you're looking for a reason to watch some hockey tonight, that's going to be good. And I think Jason Demers is right. I don't think any one of these three teams wants to play the Avs. So that's tonight. And then once those games are over and everything is cemented, we will know what else is going on with the Avalanche. But we already knew they would play Sunday. They're not going to play the same day as the Nuggets. But we don't know what time. So cross your fingers if you're a Sunday night person or a Sunday afternoon person for when the Avs play either Anaheim, LA, or Edmonton. Speaking of the Avs, Jared Bednar is back. Took a puck to the face on last Saturday against the Vegas Golden Knights, if you needed another reason to not like the Vegas Golden Knights. Jared Bednar on what he did while he wasn't coaching the Avs.
I've been just watching on TV, get a look at our guys. It's kind of different, obviously, but listen to some home broadcasts, mostly road broadcasts, see what they're talking about with their teams. And
they're better anyhow.
Yeah. Well, I like to get some new information, not the same old. So, but it was good. It was interesting to listen to, opposing teams broadcast talk about our team and talk about their teams as well, which I don't really get to do.
Jared Bednar and I have the same viewing/listening habits when it comes to the Avs. I actually prefer, as much as I like the altitude crew, I do like to listen to how the Avs are perceived by their opponents. I think it's valuable information. I think it's interesting. And Jared Bednar is doing the same thing. Now, as to the injury, Jared Bednar was asked if there was anything he could have done to prevent such a catastrophe.
Get your hands out of your pockets. It's probably the only chance you have, but I don't think I would have had to been Derek Jeter to not get hit with that one.
Yeah, he was going to get hit one way or another with that one, with that puck clearance. It was the Vegas player was right by the Avs bench and fired it immediately. out of play. So, but he's back, clearly in good spirits. It's funny, I don't have this clip, but he talks about his own injury like he talks about injuries for the players. It's like anytime you get an injury to the head, it's serious and it takes you some time. Like he's literally talking about his own injury as if he were one of the players. He is a former player, so I guess old habits die hard. But Jared Bednar back to coach the last game of the regular season tonight against Seattle. These last home games have been a little bit of a conversation lately on this radio show. Let's see how Jared Bednar is handling this final regular season game at home in front of the home fans who are paying a lot of money to watch them play.
The main thing is you want to get through healthy. We've got some dinged up players now, but everyone looks like they're going to be good. And we certainly don't want to have anyone get injured tonight, but we have some guys that have missed some time and are going to play, and we limited in the recalls that we can have. So you want to play a clean game. You want to get out healthy, and you want to set yourself up for the postseason as best as possible. And coming out tonight and getting a win in front of our fans on Fan Appreciation Night would be great.
It's the hockey culture. You cannot convince me that basketball players are so much more at risk for injury than hockey players. I mean, for Pete's sake, the Avalanche coach missed 2 games with a broken eye socket. Like, don't tell me that it's load management is such a better idea in basketball and it wouldn't be in hockey. It would be, but hockey players don't think that way. Hockey teams don't think that way. The Avalanche the Nuggets had nothing except a playoff spot promised to them on their last home game of the regular season. And David Adelman said, no one's playing. Jared Bednar his team has had everything wrapped up for a week now. And you have to look really hard to find a guy that is missing from the lineup. You won't see Nazem Kadri because he's hurt. Not being load managed, he's hurt. He has an injury. But the fans at Ball Arena tonight are going to see Nate. They're going to see Gabe. They're going to see Kale. They're going to see Marty. They're going to see Devon. The investment that Avs fans are making tonight, far better one than Nuggets fans did a week ago. And I think that's the right way of going about it. Because a lot of the people in the stadium tonight, in the arena tonight, are going to be priced out of the postseason, especially with the Avs. Like the Nuggets, you can find a way to get in there on your budget. I mean, you're still going to have to pay for playoff ticket prices. But the Avs, it's like, good luck. Those tickets are crazy expensive. So a lot of the fans tonight are just going because, hey, this might be our only chance to see the Avs the rest of the year. And they're going to see everybody. So good job, Avalanche. Now, tune in tomorrow for when one of the Avs main players get hurt, and I will be ripping Jared Bednar for playing these guys. I will not. It's a balance, and you have to be smart about it. But we forget sometimes this is an entertainment product, and the customers are the fans, and the price is not cheap. And once in a while, you got to throw them a bone and be like, you know what? We'll play Nikola Jokic in this game instead of the San Antonio game because we care more about our fans' wallets than we do our own. They played Jokic on Sunday, so they wouldn't get fined. The Nuggets wouldn't get fined. But what about the people who paid to see Nikola Jokic in the regular season home finale and didn't get to? It's an NBA problem. As you well know, it's the biggest NBA problem is their stars not being there for television partners, but more importantly, their fans. And yet, hockey players, there. And it's just a culture. And the NBA players, and I keep needing to bring this up because I want to be fair here. Nikola Jokic just said the other day that he didn't like resting. He didn't like it. He wanted to play on Friday. It's an organizational decision that kept Nikola Jokic out. So the NBA players, they want to play by and large. Hockey players want to play. The difference is organizations in the NHL say, yeah, we're gonna be smart about it, but we're gonna play you. And in the NBA, they're like, no. You're not gonna play. 719-247-1313. By the way, Avs and Kraken regular season finale, 8:00 on Extra Sports 1300. More Drive Time Sports next. Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or you're watching this show anywhere you scroll at 740 KVOR and at Extra Sports 1300. Head coach of Switchbacks FC, Alan McCann, will be my guest a little less than 20 minutes from now. We now know when his team will be playing Colorado Rapids in the U.S. Open Cup round of 16. That will be April 29th, but a couple of USL matches in between there. So we'll get his thoughts predominantly, on the win the other night, of course, but as the focus shifts to Monterey Bay on Saturday afternoon. You can be my guest at 719-247-1313, or you could just drop a comment on the aforementioned live streams of the show. Perhaps you have thoughts about the three stories that are driving the show. All right, let's start with this for story number one.
I mean, this is like seventh time that we play against them, and of course, it's not something similar to last year. The teams are not similar, and nothing is. Players are better individually and collectively. So the key is probably to set our tone and we be the aggressors, not them.
Nikola Jokic with thoughts on a rematch a couple years in the making with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I think what he brings up is the key for me in game one. And I think it will permeate throughout the rest of the series. The Nuggets have to dictate terms starting on Saturday. Okay, I may be confident that the Denver Nuggets are going to beat Minnesota. But there's enough scar tissue amongst this fan base that the minute that Minnesota starts looking, or this series starts looking like the last one, people are going to start panicking, and I can't say for certain that I won't be one of them. The Nuggets have to put everyone's mind at ease by coming out, and I'm not saying they got to blow out Minnesota, but just play the game on your terms. Don't let the Wolves bully you, because that's exactly what they did 2 years ago. The Nuggets were not ready for it, and they never recovered. This year, it's about the Nuggets coming out in game one and for the rest of the series showing this is a different time. This is going to be played on our terms. And if the game is played on the Nuggets' terms, Wolves don't stand a chance. But game one is an important game. It's not the be-all, end-all, but I think for a tone setter, I think it's very important for the Nuggets to do that coming up Saturday afternoon. And I think they have the ability to. I don't think Jokic has the problems with this version of the Wolves as he did the 2 years ago. I think Jamal Murray's in a better place with his health than he was a couple of years ago. And I just think that the Nuggets are a better team than they were 2 years ago. And I think Minnesota, by a small margin, but still not as good as they were 2 years ago. So game one, come out, set the tone, say you're playing our way this year. Game one, Saturday afternoon, 1:30 on 740 KVOR. Story number two, more audio.
Hits this ball down the line and right. You can forget about that one. Line drive, home run for Air Jordan. A quick flight, and the Astros lead it 3-1.
And that would be the final score last night as the Rockies continue to spiral after what was a fun start. They go to San Diego and get beat up pretty good. And tonight they will be trying to avoid a sweep at the hands of the Houston Astros. And look, this was going to happen at some point. You thought with the start the Rockies had, or not you, me, that maybe we could get like a month here, a month where the Rockies are winning some ball games. Doesn't look like we're going to get that. But the talent discrepancy is just too large. One thing I will say, to be a little bit positive here, they lose 3-1 last night. They've lost some close games. They're still competitive. And that's kind of the next start. Last year, they just weren't competitive in singular games or the season. Now they're competitive in these games. They're not winning a lot of them. In fact, they're winning none of them lately. But the game is still in the balance late. And I continue to be impressed with the Rockies bullpen. I think that might be the biggest positive so far this year. The starters have been a little hit and miss. Although I thought Quintana was pretty good. He ran into trouble in one inning and it ultimately cost him. But the bullpen has been very good. So there's still some positives to be taken away, knowing that this team wasn't going to win a lot of games. And if you want to be, put a positive spin on it and get the correct perspective on everything, they are losing as much as the Mets are lately, and the Mets have a payroll like double the Rockies. We knew this was coming for the Colorado Rockies at some point. What excuse does the team in Queens have? So it could be worse, but it's not going well for the Rockies, and they'll try to, again, avoid the sweep tonight at 6:10 down at Minute Maid and Ron, whatever they call that, a stadium down there in Houston. Story number 3 today is the NBA has granted the exception to their 65-game rule for both Luka Doncic and Cade Cunningham. Both are going to be all NBA. Luka's going to be all NBA first team. We'll see if Cade gets into the all NBA first team. And then we'll see with what happens with Luka in the MVP race. I agree with the NBA's decision. They have a rule. They put the rule in place for a reason, and that reason was load management. It was not to prohibit new fathers from being at the birth of their children, which is the exception they granted Luka Doncic. They created the 65-game rule to combat against teams that will label their player out with any number of soft tissue injuries. It's a hamstring. Basically, anything that Joel Embiid has had over the last few years is basically the injuries that teams will use as an excuse to keep their star players out of games. Cade Cunningham was fallen on and broke his lung. Okay, that's an extraordinary circumstance. Cade Cunningham was cruising. At one point, we were talking about Cade Cunningham being the MVP by default, by elimination, because he was the only guy that looked like he was going to cross the 65-game threshold. This guy is in the lineup night in and night out. And as soon as he was medically cleared, he was back in the Detroit lineup. I think that the NBA, for all of their faults, and there are many, I think the 65-game rule worked. Do you think Nikola Jokic plays 65 games if this rule doesn't exist? I don't think he does. Do you think Wemby does? So I think the 65-game rule works, and I am okay with some wiggle room built in to where you can say, yeah, that's not what we made this rule for, so we will give you an exception. So I have no problem with what the NBA did. I'm happy for Cade Cunningham and Luka Doncic because I think they deserve to be discussed for the MVP and for all NBA first team. But yes, there are, like everything in sports, winners and losers. The winners are Luka and Cade. One of the losers could be a Jamal Murray in all of this. Right? Not that I think he's going to be all NBA first team, but does Luka and Cade Cunningham being eligible now push him down to the third team? Now, I don't know that there's much of a difference. I don't remember the last time anybody other than when the awards were announced brings up the fact that a guy was only second team All NBA or third team. I think the first team matters. I don't think Jamal was going to get that, but he might slip to third, which I would disagree with the voters on that. But I don't think it completely ruins what Jamal Murray did this season. And with Nikola Jokic, he already wasn't going to win the MVP. And I am not a guy that cares who finishes third and fourth in the MVP vote. If I thought that Nikola Jokic was going to win the MVP, then I would think this is a bigger deal. I don't think he will. And I think some ballots will have Luka above Jokic, and I think maybe the same number will have Jokic above Luka. I think it's, but even if two Nuggets players are being somewhat penalized for this, the NBA did the right thing. They put a rule in place. That's the NBA organization's fault, by the way. They did this with load management. It wasn't Adam Silver saying, hey, you should keep your stars out of more games. So it's on the NBA teams. I have no pity for them whatsoever. They created this. The NBA did something to actually fix it. As much as they break with that great sport of theirs, they did something to try and fix this, but they left themselves the room to be able to judge on a case-by-case basis whether the 65-game rule is in place because of that circumstance. I don't have a problem with this. I think the NBA made the right choice. I do. Anthony Edwards applied for this too. I think he might have a case. I think maybe the NBA didn't go far enough in granting some of these exceptions. I mean, Ant was out with an infection. But, you know, people were saying, why have the rule if the rules... There are a lot of rules in our society that you have exceptions to or different ways to enforce them. Every walk of our lives, this happens. There are exceptions to every rule. It's literally a saying. This is the exception to the rule. So what if it's fluid? So what if it's not a set limit with no exceptions? I don't have a problem with that. So Luka and Cade eligible for postseason awards. We'll see how that makes everything all shake out here. By the way, now that those rulings were made, I saw a couple of NBA postseason award voters say that they got their votes today, their ballots today. So I don't know. It'll take us a long time to find out how all of this shakes out. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. Coming up next, Switchbacks head coach Alan McCann on his team's historic win on, what day was that? Tuesday. And looking ahead to Saturday's matchup with Monterey Bay FC. This is Drive Time Sports on 740 KVOR and also the home of Switchbacks Soccer, Extra Sports 1300. Been a good start to the week for the boys with that 3-0 win over Sporting Kansas City in the U.S. Open Cup. And Saturday, it's back to USL Championship play against Monterey Bay FC. Joining me now is Switchbacks boss Alan McCann. Alan, is that what it's supposed to look like on Tuesday?
A lot of it, yes. It was, I think we had talked previous, it was a lot of what we were looking to do, especially in possession. Being more intentional with our possession is what you and I had talked about previous, leading into that game. So we definitely saw that there Tuesday night. And
you put out a squad that sent the message that we're here to win this. But at the same time, and it's part of your job as a head coach, right? You got to balance things out. You put in a guy in Saddam Masareka who we've seen a little bit of, especially in the U.S. Open Cup. And then he's the best player on the field, arguably, the other night. Did you see that kind of a performance coming from Saddam from what you've seen in matches and also in training?
It's why we brought him here, for those types of moments. I think if you watch even 4 to 5 games of his previous year in college there, those moments you saw Tuesday night are very familiar from what you would see when he was wearing a Maryland shirt. So for us, it was a big one. It's a big stage for him to do it on, but we know he's capable of it. Now it's next step in his career, and it's very, very early in his pro career, is finding consistency with that. But his ceiling is very, very high, and he most definitely will have more of those actions this year.
Would it be your advice that every team has an Aiden Rocha on their team?
I would say as a man and as a footballer, yes. Internally, we love him. I think there's a future leader down the line there. And he can also play a couple of positions too. So he's versatile as a footballer in there, and you know what you're going to get. He's literally going to leave everything out there on the pitch. And we've 4 or 5 other guys like that too. So when that's a member of your organisation, part of your locker room, and then playing for you out on the pitch, and you're on the sideline watching it, you're always happy that he's playing for you and not against you.
That's what I was just going to say. He is the embodiment of the guy that you love to have on your side and hate to go against. I thought he was terrific the other night as well. So big picture here. What can a win like that do for you as you go back into USL Championship play? Obviously, you have the Rapids game coming up that I want to get your early thoughts on, but what can a win like that do for this team moving forward this year?
It's definitely, you have to use it now to roll into Saturday and build momentum. I think the biggest thing, the result is big, and the biggest thing for us is the process within that result. As I had spoke to you, the week that we had with the bye week, very, very intentional with what we did in training there, and we had to fix a few things internally for ourselves, and the big chunk of that was what were we doing with our possession. We couldn't continue to be so side to side and predictable. We had to become more chaotic and more unpredictable in the final third. So I think that, yes, the result is huge and it helps, but the actual now piece from training that we worked on, and the lads being able to go out and execute that, and it then gives you bigger picture ideas. It now gives you a body of work that you can actually go and repeat that, and you can continue to be chaotic and unpredictable in the final third.
And Alan McCann, Switchbacks head coach, my guest here on Drive Time Sports. What will it mean to this club and this team to get a shot at, the relationship through the years, as you know, a little intertwined with the Colorado Rapids. So to have a chance to share the field with them, to go at them and trying to do the same thing against them that you did against Sporting Kansas City, how special is that opportunity here in a couple weeks?
It's huge because it's a unique challenge and we don't get to do it week in, week out. They're a fantastic team. You know, they've had a lot of changes there in the off season. New coach and some new big name signings come in too. So we get to go up against that and pit ourselves up against them. And obviously the drive, it's an away game, but the drive isn't too far away. So that will help hopefully get some supporters from our side there as well, which I think is a great occasion for everyone involved, not just the players and us as staff. It's now a big one for everybody involved. And, you know, we're a small little community here with the Switchbacks, but I think we can really, really represent ourselves. Go up there, that's the goal. Go up there, represent ourselves as a whole club, staff, players, you know, front office, fans, everybody. I think it gives everybody a great occasion to go out and put your best foot forward.
Yeah, there's really nothing like the U.S. Open Cup in North American sports. It's more prevalent, obviously, these kind of competitions overseas. But yeah, I second Alan's sentiment there. Again, April here in a couple of weeks, Wednesday night, 7:00. Make sure that you clear your calendar so you can go up and support the boys. But there are matches in between that Alan would love to have your support, I'm sure. Let's talk about Monterey Bay coming up on Saturday as you're back into league play. Do you see because that's part of the trick here, right? You're playing 2 matches in 1 week and it's different players, but do you see similarities in terms of the system or the way that Monterey Bay plays that is comparable to what you saw on Tuesday, against Kansas City?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first direct similarity is that they're very, very good in transition. Their, you know, leg it out at wide right is a big threat for them. So we kind of prepped for KC with that too, because they had been, majority of their goals have been coming from transition moments. So that's the first similarity. And then I think the big one for us is that we have to be as chaotic and unpredictable going forward as we were on Tuesday night, because if we do, we can have some joy and make them defend more and expose some errors that may be going on back there for them throughout their season. So I think they're the 2 major standout similarities we've seen with both teams.
Yeah, and how were you able to limit Sporting Kansas City's transitions on Tuesday?
First half was different to second half. They changed at half time. You know, they went with Calhir up top as well. Mm-hmm. So we just adjusted into the second half to collapse Frank and Brennan next to each other. So then we were able to pick, because they went more direct second half too. And first 5-6 minutes, they started then winning those second balls. They started winning balls higher up and caught us out on a couple of moments. And they've one shot at the top of the second half that we're then able to adjust with the 2 6s to give us more defensive security back there. And then when Frank came out of the game, we put Sam Williams in there. So you had 2 very good defensive-minded central midfielders there in front of Mahoney and Garvin. So we were able to kind of have the superior numbers, or at least equal their numbers, especially second half. I thought first half we were just able to be dominant overall because of how much we threatened in behind. And there really they weren't as direct first half as they were second. So that kind of threat was nullified just by the nature of how they played first half.
Well, the Switchbacks will look to replicate a lot of what they did on Tuesday this Saturday afternoon, 3:00 at Widener Field, taking on Monterey Bay. Make sure you're out to support the boys. SwitchbacksFC.com is where you go to get your tickets. Alan, appreciate you taking the time. Congratulations on the win on Tuesday, and go get them Saturday, huh?
Cheers, Ryan. Yeah, thank you very much. Hopefully see you there.
Yep, you will. Like it or not, Alan, I'll see you out there. See you, buddy. That is Alan McCann, the head coach of Switchbacks FC here on Drive Time Sports. And I got to go back to this. I said this on Wednesday. Everything that Alan laid out to me in training played itself out. Like this team is very prepared on a match-to-match basis. They know what to expect. They know the pressure points. They know what the other team can do against them that they need to be leery of. So he laid it out to me, and man, did his team go out there, execute, and deliver on Tuesday night. One of the biggest wins in club history against Sporting Kansas City. And now, not to go too far ahead of ourselves here, because obviously the biggest goal that this team has is winning another USL championship crown. But the win against Colorado Rapids would be even bigger. Right? The team right up the road from you. I talked about with Saddam Masareka yesterday, the extra juice maybe he had going up against the team that drafted him in Sporting Kansas City. I'll call it now. Yosuke Hanya will have a big part to play in whether the Switchbacks beat the Rapids. Last couple of years, Yosuke has been on loan from that club. Now he's a full-fledged member of Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC. That's a guy I expect to play a big role in that match on April 29th, 7 o'clock at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. But you heard Alan wants to get as many people up there as we can. Some of these trips inside the USL Championship, like, they're not easy ones to make. This is an hour up the road. Hopefully you can make it out to support the boys. So just mark your calendar for the 29th. But in the meantime, Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock, back to the business at hand, which is beating a USL championship team in Monterey Bay. Thanks to Alan for doing that. Shouts to Ashley, who is outstanding as the media relations coordinator for the Colorado Springs Switchbacks. 719-247-1313. Last call for your thoughts on this Thursday. I have a few of my own I want to share with you before we go, and I'll do that next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Don't miss your shot, Nuggets fans. Sign up for Buzzer Beater to unlock playoff ticket offers sent right to your phone. Score exclusive access to ticket drops and be part of the playoff action at Ball Arena. All you need to do is sign up today at nuggets.pogoseat.com. Again, the situation for tonight is as follows for the Avalanche first round opponent. It's a little convoluted here, but Anaheim plays Nashville. That game starts at the top of the hour. If the Ducks win and the Oilers lose, the Ducks will be the second team out of the Pacific Division, and the Oilers would most likely be third there. I think what you're really looking at, and it would be interesting, certainly, if Edmonton were to fall to the second wild card, and that's the series we would get for the Avs and Oilers. Now, it would not be the easy go of it. I will say that if that ends up being the Avs first round series. I've talked about the Kings being a good, or when Utah was potentially going to be in that second wild card spot, I did say that either one of those two teams would provide enough resistance that you feel like if you're Jared Bednar, you got something out of your first round series. Edmonton, it's like, oh, okay, now we got to go here. Right? McDavid, what's the status of Draisaitl? I wouldn't change my thought. I still think that the Avalanche would get through to the second round, but that would be, if we're talking about the least wanted first round matchup, I think you'd have to be fair to Edmonton and say it's Edmonton. I don't think a lot of Avs fans were preparing for the first round to be against Connor McDavid. Be great. I mean, it would be entertaining as all get out, but I don't think that's the idea that the Avs worked all season to get the 1 seed, the President's Trophy, all this stuff, and they get Edmonton round 1, Dallas round 2. Like, I think they were looking maybe for something else there. But that's the least likely scenario. Edmonton is at home tonight against the worst team in the league. But strange things have happened. I won't say stranger things, because I don't know what would be. That would be in hockey. I can't recall what this would be. Is the Denver Nuggets losing to the San Antonio Spurs 2 years ago? That's what this would be. Edmonton absolutely does not want to play the Colorado Avalanche, and all they need to do is something. Don't lose in regulation, and you avoid the Colorado Avalanche round 1. If they were hosting the worst team in the league, and Adam Foote and the boys took it to the Oilers, and the Oilers got stuck, that's what that would be. Rare have we had similar situations, but it's on the table. It's on the table. And when the other games start, I mean, one game is already going to be going when Edmonton drops the puck. The other game's going on simultaneously. Like, there might be a little scoreboard watching, and if Vancouver gets an early goal and you look up at the scoreboard and you see that Anaheim and LA are winning, that might add an interesting dynamic to tonight. But it will most likely be either Anaheim or LA. And the best bet is LA. Because one, Anaheim has I believe they have the tiebreaker, and they're up obviously in points on LA. And you have Anaheim in Nashville at 6:00, and then at 7:00 it will be Kings at. I think I said it was home against Calgary. It's at Calgary. So those two teams on the road, not against good teams, but they're on the road. Edmonton's at home against the worst team in the league. So we'll see. And then at 8:00 tonight, it will be on ESPN if you want to watch. Extra Sports 1300 if you want to listen. It will be the Avs and Kraken to close out the regular season tonight. The Dave Haxtell revenge game. Dave Haxtell, Avalanche assistant coach, used to be the head coach of the Seattle Kraken. So there's that. Avs tonight can set the franchise record for points in a season. I think they can even do that if they go to overtime. They can. So we'll see what the Avs look like tonight. And then the best part about tonight is not that the Avs, are playing the Kraken, or that we have these three teams in the Pacific trying desperately to avoid the Avs in the first round. It's the fact that we'll get the first round schedule tonight. We know the Avs will play Sunday. Duh. NHL, we know the basketball team that is housed in the same building is playing Saturday and Monday. We know you're playing Sunday. What time? We will find that out this evening. And then the regular season will be over, and we'll get ready for the greatest postseason in all of sport, the Stanley Cup playoffs. The topic earlier, I threw this out in the first hour, inspired by Steph Curry's turn the clock back performance against the Clippers last night. If the NBA playoffs suddenly turned into a one and done March Madness style, would it change greatly who you perceive as the two teams that would meet in the finals? And it would be just a final because it would be one game. And who would win? And I got this text earlier. How about the Pistons with a player like Cade Cunningham? I mean, the Pistons are, by record, the best team in the Eastern Conference. And they do have a guy that was entrenched in the MVP conversation until somebody landed on his lung. I think that's not a bad choice by any stretch of the imagination. I would say that even though, and we see this with March Madness, yes, it's one game. And yes, having the best player on the floor can mean much more in a one-game scenario than a 7-game scenario. But it's still the postseason. It's still the brightest of lights. Right? So as brilliant of a player as Cade Cunningham is, and I really like the Detroit Pistons, I do, it's still a stage that they are largely unproven on. And when you have the Celtics with Tatum and Brown healthy, not to mention Derek White and everybody else on that team, I just think even in a one-game scenario, it would I would take Boston over Detroit. But Detroit would be a good pick. Good defensive team. Cade Cunningham is a legit star. And when it comes to the East, they did prove over 82 games that they were at least the best team in the East. Ray, I know you're champing at the bit to add to this conversation. So you know the rules here. What series or matchup or team would change your mind greatly if it were no longer a 7-game series and it became just a one-off situation?
You know, a team I'm going to talk about in the East is Cleveland.
Okay.
I feel if it became a one-off situation, Donovan Mitchell could really step up his game for multiple games, but I feel like he would shock people.
We saw it in the bubble
Exactly.
over the course of a series. That's a great point. And the idea of Game 7 James Harden would not exist. Well, it could go one of two ways. Either James Harden mentally will look at it as a Game 7 and it will not go well, or look at it as a Game 1 and it will go great, because James Harden was giving the Nuggets a lot of problems early on in the series last year.
But I wasn't even thinking of James. Cleveland was good before James even got there. So
True,
you take him out. I mean, he adds to it, but if he has a bad game, I feel Cleveland is still a tough team.
Right. Well, in the whole, I talked about OKC and how they're uniquely built or best built to win a 7-game series because of how good defensively they are, how physical, all that, and the depth that they have. Cleveland made the trade for James Harden because they wanted to make themselves more playoff ready, tougher to beat in the playoffs, because they were just too small in the backcourt with Darius Garland. So they brought in James Harden. They believe they are better suited for a 7-game series. Are they necessarily better suited for a one-off with James Harden over Darius Garland?
Tough.
It is. It just depends on what James Harden internalizes. Is this Game 1 or is this Game 7?
Right. So, okay, but I'm saying I'm looking at them. But if I'm going with who's my finals?
Yeah, who would be your final?
Denver, New York.
Denver, New York.
Yeah.
And the winner would be?
Denver. Okay. But it would be a close one.
Okay.
Because we've seen them struggle with New York twice. They played twice this year. They lost both times.
And that's a great point that you bring up, because in the NBA Finals now, you get 7 games. So I think part of the reason why the Nuggets have had their struggles this year against, and it's 2 games, right? It's 2 games. But the reason why they have struggled in both, I do think, is the combination of the Knicks being a good team, but also unfamiliar.
Yeah.
The Knicks have made some changes. The Nuggets don't see them all the time. That would still exist in an in a one-off NBA final if these two teams were to meet in the normal NBA finals, the real NBA finals. Then I think the struggles that the Nuggets had against the Knicks would not be as prevalent, because they would be putting all their attention, all their scouting into the New York Knicks.
In Denver, so that helps.
And it would too.
It would be in Denver. Pretty sure, I could be wrong. Did Aaron Gordon play in either of those Knicks games?
That's a good question, and I think I'm going to say he played in one. You can look at that.
Yeah.
But my point is, in a one-off, and you're sticking with the Western Conference team, but I'm saying an argument for the East. Did they put?
It was his return game. Remember, he made that. I now remember. Remember, he made an alley-oop dunk, and everybody was like, "We're back, and then they got destroyed, losing 142 to 103.
But he played one.
But he did play one.
Okay.
But that's what I'm saying. But he was on a minutes restriction, so it doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
No minutes restriction counts. Although that's Victor Wembanyama's entire season.
I mean, technically, wasn't he on a minutes restriction against the Spurs? Played 41 minutes.
That's true. Like the 65-game rule, there are exceptions.
Right. So, yeah, I would go Denver, New York. I feel like New York could pull it out against Boston. And I feel like Detroit. I just feel like New York could pull it out.
And New York, I said this earlier, their entire identity and the moves they made were to beat Boston. Like, that's how they were built. And I'm not just saying this year, I'm saying going back when all of this team in large part got put together, it was to try and beat Boston.
Right.
So, but I think the conclusion here is that it would be. Mm-hmm. It would be a little bit different.
No,
it would be for me. I think that the Nuggets would get to an NBA Finals. I don't feel like they're going to with the 7-game series here. I'd stick with Boston in the East, but little ones along the way. Like I said, I think LeBron can, in a one-off situation, do what Steph Curry did last night and be able to beat Houston.
Real quick,
Yeah.
does OKC make it to the Western Conference Finals?
Yes. The way the bracket's set up, because you could argue that all San Antonio's been doing is beating OKC in one-off situations.
Right.
They're not on that side of the bracket. So it would still be the Nuggets and Spurs to get to OKC. So you're talking about, okay, if the Lakers were to win, it would be the Lakers.
Well, I'm just saying, all I'm saying is, if Golden State gets there, can Steph pull off? If there was one game, could Steph pull it off again?
No, I don't think he could.
Stop.
No, because time doesn't reset. Right. So Steph played last night. Steph would play tomorrow. Steph would play on Sunday.
Yeah.
And then we'd keep going. Maybe there'd be a break. But the idea here, just like March Madness, it's like you still have to play like multiple games in a short amount of time.
Right.
And I don't think Steph Curry would be able to do it. But you do bring up, and we only got a minute, but one of the big questions too that you posed when we were talking about this off air is, do I get Luka back for the second game? Like, he wouldn't be available for the first game, right? Because he's not going to be for the first game of the series. Would Luka be back by the time, in this, hypothetical one-off situation? Maybe he would be. And you would, for the record, take Luka and LeBron one game over the Thunder?
Yes.
That hate runs deep, my friend.
Yeah.
That's going to be it for us. My thanks to Brian Boyle of NHL Network, as well as Switchbacks head coach Alan McCann. Avalanche and Kraken coming up tonight, 8 o'clock, Extra Sports 1300. If you're listening on 740 KVOR, Mark Levin is next. Talk to you tomorrow.